All right, today our guest is Kevin Hoang. Kevin, I first kind of met you or heard about you through my colleagues who are really involved with Collegiate Esports. Could you give us a quick background about yourself and what you are up to today?
Hi guys. My name is Kevin Hong. I've been in collegiate esports for about 7 years. I actually known John, your name, since like when I was getting started in esports, when you were still at Team Ember, when you were building the LCS team and stuff. And I was like, wow, like this is, I was, it was, it's cool to kind of like circle back and talk to you about all this stuff now, and how far like we've come since like 7 years ago when we were kind of making up things. But yeah, I was in collegiate esports for 7 years. I started at the University of Washington as like I was a coach of the B team of the League of Legends team, and like I got my start in esports through StarCraft 2, but mostly around League of Legends. I think League of Legends Season 2 World's Championship was what really cemented me to like pursue esports, like fully full send, like working in esports. And I got involved through collegiate esports, which was which was blooming at that time too in 2012, 2013. At a quick story on the University of Washington, like we were the biggest gaming club. We were the biggest club on campus. We had about 10% of the entire student body. We were getting kicked out of libraries, and we weren't even allowed to play League of Legends anywhere on campus. But we had the highest representation of people. It was just very weird that we didn't feel validated for our hobbies or what we were doing for the student life. So yeah, so I got started through those crazy days, and now it's crazy to think that there's like over 500 varsity esports programs in North America alone. So it's been a long journey since getting kicked out of libraries to now like people are getting full ride to scholarships to play video games.
Let me ask you a question before you come on to the next part of your journey, which is why do you think University of Washington had the biggest gaming club? Like what is it about? Is it about the city, Seattle? Is it like what's why?
It was like it was a culmination of things. It was really like League of Legends really blew up during season 2, season 3, and then a lot of people were playing it. It was free to play, and like everyone had a laptop and everyone wanted a game together. And Seattle is a very rainy city, and everyone stayed indoors, and people love gaming. And so it was just a natural evolution. And at that time, like LCS was born too. It's like the first like professional league for League of Legends, right? Was like, wow, like they're making it like like sports where there's like weekend matches and stuff. So we kind of built our class schedule around LCS and Worlds. Like, um, so I think that was like what really cemented it. Of all the 5,000 college students that were in our club, like half of them were league players. So it made up a big amount of our community.
Um, One quick question, follow up to that is eventually I think there was like some sponsorship or something like there's like an official University of Washington like gaming center. Do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah. So what happened was like as we grew our club, we started seeing in 2015 we saw the first ever varsity esports program called Robert Morris University. So they made big news in 2015, and right after in 2016, University of California Irvine launched their varsity esports program as well as the first public university in America in the world to create an esports program. And then within 4 months, I was pitching to the UW to do the same thing because I was like, why does UCI get all the nice things? We have more gamers. We have just as competitive gamers. We were in the tech hub of like Valve, Nintendo, Microsoft, Amazon, Twitch. So it just made sense that we built our own. And then I was able to convince the student life director and then the provost to build the esports program. So there's like a 40 PC setup in at the University of Washington today. And it was launched in 2018 after I pitched it in 2016. I was able to cut the ribbon too. That was crazy.
No, no,
My
that's
mom was there.
I'm
That was
glad you got
crazy.
I'm glad you got to cut the ribbon. I will share one other story about that topic. I'll share kind of what I can about it because I don't want to get that person in trouble. But there was a former guest on this podcast who you know, and he was also very interested in what you were doing at University of Washington. And we put together like all these proposals internally at our company to try to like support it, launch it, brand it, for our company. So he like this guy, you know who he is. I think you just hung out with him in New York, but he's been
Oh,
following you for many years as well. So, okay. So what happened after you were done at the University of Washington?
yeah. So I was still trying to work in esports. I wasn't making any money during this time. I maybe joined like a few startups to try to get my foot in the door. And eventually I got a job. I got a contractor role at Twitch. But even during this time, I was like, I decided to move to Los Angeles. I took a gap year, and then I ended up living with four other guys in a two-bedroom apartment in Playa Vista. And I was sleeping in the living room on a twin mattress to get started in esports because I knew that Playa Vista was central to LA, central enough where I don't have to commute an hour anywhere. And I got to meet everyone I needed to meet in esports by living in Playa Vista. At this time, I also had like $12,000 in student debt. So taking a gap year flags you for missing school from your financial aid. So like I was like making bad decisions while I was like pursuing this thing. And then my boss at that time, Garvey, lived in Malibu. So I had to go from Playa Vista to his house in Malibu. So I was making those commutes back and forth. So I started as a Twitch ambassador, student ambassador. And I was like, and then yeah, I joined Twitch's new department that was focusing on building college esports around the world. I had no idea what I signed up for. It was kind of like this blank canvas that was like, hey, this collegiate esports is booming. Twitch wants to help see it grow. And I was like the first head count. Technically, and I was a contractor for the first year and a half before I converted full time.
Okay, I want to hear more about this Twitch collegiate program. But before we get into that, what you just shared is like a common story you see in movies, kind of, right? Like, hey, you want to make it into a specific industry, like, yeah, some people want to make it into finance. Cool. Pack up your bags, go to New York City. You want to get into entertainment, pack up your bags, move to LA, like one-way ticket, no way back. It
Yeah,
didn't seem that hardcore for you, but it sounded like that's what you did.
yeah, full
And
send.
I love that story because, look, I'm not advocating that people just upend everything in their life and take major financial risks, but I did notice, I have noticed more often than not, the people who really go YOLO and all in, it somehow like it creates the quote unquote luck or the opportunities for them to pursue. So I think that's a badass story. And yeah, tell us more about Twitch Collegiate.
Yeah, so I joined in like 2016, 2017, and during this time there was a mass amount of interest from schools that were trying to build esports programs, especially with UCI really setting the momentum, and then new schools were coming in. So Twitch student was like pretty much we were helping onboard a lot of these schools from 0 to 1, even like from helping them understand even like Fortnite or League of Legends, and like kind of demystifying the gaming like stereotypes. To That was like the first year was like a lot of gaming stereotypes. A lot of the conversations were like dealing with a lot of ignorance and required a lot of patience, right? And then like over the course of like 2 3 years, a lot of schools started really adopting and doing their homework around what this really means. Like they started looking at it as really entertainment. So all that time educating schools created this ripple effect where other schools were sharing information with each other on how to build these gaming and esports programs. And it was a way for us to meet students where they are to help them get into the industry without having to move to Los Angeles, as an example, right? It was like, how can you learn a bit while you're already on campus if you don't have the opportunity to like go to the West Coast because you got like this job, or made your got a foot in the door somewhere. So like, can school help make those early discovery phases better? So that was kind of like my mission in doing all that. The role was also global, so I was sponsoring like college esports tournaments around the world, from Europe to Latin America to like Southeast Asia. And so that was like what got me to open my mind a bit, and really like I traveled like over like 20 countries when I was at Twitch, and like I really learned a lot about, it was really cool to see esports in all these different regions. Like I never thought I would sign up for something like this, especially out of college. So I was very grateful for the role as well.
So, okay, I want to dig into that a bit. What is the most interesting or coolest to you country to visit and why? And what was the most interesting country you visited as it relates to collegiate esports?
Yeah, so most interesting country was like I definitely really liked I definitely really liked Istanbul, like Turkey and Istanbul. I had a lot of fun. It was like a huge culture shock because it was like the cultures are vastly different from like Western Europe or like Southeast Asia where I grew up, like where my family's from. So it was like a really cool, like, oh wow, like this is the food was completely different. Way the architecture is laid out was really different. The buildings were just so, and then like two like buildings that exist like trading bazaars that existed for thousands of years. That was like really really cool to see. For the coolest collegiate scene, it was definitely Brazil, in Sao Paulo. Like we had, they were like when people talk about like Brazil esports, people are like, yeah, the crowd is like super enthusiastic and they're really energetic. But you got to go see it for yourself because it was definitely like an eye opening experience watching like the Brazilian esports scene.
That's a good point. Many people know already by now the South Korean esports scene, and I knew this even back in when I used to work at Riot.
Yeah.
But when Riot paid for us to go to, I think it was like season four, World Championship. I think it was in Seoul, and they flew the entire company out. And yeah, like I mean, being there is different than watching it, on Twitch or on stream or like reading a news article. It was
Yeah.
insane, and also it was also kind of like a culture shock for me because I mean, yes, America's super diverse, but you can see like entire nation of people who kind of like look like us, and then they were just treating esports with like so much respect and fandom. It was so weird but awesome, and that's actually why I started my esports team. When I was like, oh my god, like this is it. I got to get in on this. Um, okay, so you did all this cool traveling. You learned a lot about just different cultures and collegiate esports around the world. How did that lead you to AcadArena? Because I have to say, when I first heard about it, I was like, man, Kevin's he's living his best life. Like he's doing some cool slash weird Southeast Asian esports startup. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so AcadArena, history about them. They were running the collegiate championships in the Philippines and like they were expanding to like other parts of Southeast Asia. It was started by Ariane and Justin back in like late 2019. I sponsored them when I was at Twitch, so I got to see them in their big highlight moments. But I was always fascinated about Southeast Asian collegiate esports. So when I was touring around Vietnam and like Philippines, I got to see a bit of the scene there, and I really like fell in love with it. And then I also wanted to also go back to my culture, like of like my roots in Southeast Asia. So I was like, well, I think what I'm gonna do after Twitch was like kind of focus my attention on esports in Southeast Asia, gaming and esports in Southeast Asia. Um, so I left Twitch in April of 2021, and then I joined AcadArena in July, and that was when we were just fit. We just raised our pre-seed round with Iterative, which is a YC-esque accelerator in Singapore. Um, that and basically the company's mission is to really bring millions of students into Web3 through gaming. And I think with that, it was something that we've been kind of like been hitting the ground running since we joined the accelerator. I think like that really got us like it's been a crazy like 6 months after leaving Twitch, and I can't believe it's only been like 6 months leaving Twitch. I mean, I should have taken a break after like 4 years of this 7 years of this grind, but I like did not take a break, so it was like a big mess up on my part. But definitely like it's been nonstop.
I always say that. I'm always like, I shouldn't have started a job or ended the job and started a job on Friday and then Monday, but I
Yeah.
always end up doing it. And I hate myself for it. Okay, so you just said a lot of stuff. You said bring students into Web3 gaming.
Yeah.
What is Web3? What is Web3 gaming? What is play to earn?
Yeah. So play to earn has like really blew up this year because of this game called Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is like this 1v1 card game, but instead of building a deck, your deck is like owning three like Axies, which looks like Neopets. And then each Axie can be bred like 7 times. And but basically what's going on is like people are playing this game, and if you win, you can earn cryptocurrency called Smooth Love Potion, which is SLP. And it's around like, and it's a wave where people can use SLP to breed more Axies because each Axie can only be bred 7 times. So in order to build the ecosystem, you need to keep breeding. Um, Play to earn really blew up during the pandemic when people are stuck at home and needed to find a different source of income. And with play to earn, it's like this gaming is like now that we all know that gaming is a universal language, and like people around the world have access to the internet, and with their phone, it's like a match made in heaven for like people to play this video game, earn cryptocurrencies, and sell it that cryptocurrencies to earn some sort of living. What's exciting about Southeast Asia, particularly, is that people are earning more than full time minimum wage by playing Axie part time. They did Axie Infinity to this day has earned over $2 billion in revenue this year alone in terms of transactions. Sky Mavis, the company that owns Axie Infinity, just finished their Series B round led by A16Z. I think it was like $184 million round, which is like incredibly insane. And kind of and now like put play to earn on the map. Um, and you're also seeing companies called guilds now. Guilds are being formed um, to buy assets in these games. To basically imagine like owning a piece of League of Legends, RuneScape, or World of Warcraft, and getting the bits of that economic opportunity growing up, which has been insane because I played a ton of these games. Um, but what made this even crazier was uh, this like revenue sharing model when it comes to Axie. And what that means is like um, guilds are buying these Axies at like $800 to $1,000 per Axie team and lending it out to people in the Philippines or Venezuela, or especially in these developing nations, and and giving the players the account so they can play every single day. And then the guild takes a kickback on the currency that's earned every single day from these players. And with this revenue share model, guilds can benefit for buying Axies and then giving it out to players so that players can also earn at the same time. So with AcadArena, we pivoted the company to incorporate play to earn as part of our mission to help, really build the campus gaming initiative, build our campus gaming programs. So we launched our like play to grad. We call it play to grad, where like we use Axie Infinity to get students a scholarship to give students Axie accounts so they can play Axie so they can graduate school and pay tuition, which is freaking insane right now.
Okay, hold on.
It's like it's a whole like crazy rabbit hole that I went down in like the last 45 days. I'm happy
Okay.
to break it all through.
Yeah, no, let's break it down. But first thing, I think you said so you're gonna give like a traditional scholarship to like money for college students to graduate, right? But there's also the other concept of scholars.
Yeah, I don't know why the community calls it this, but the Axie Infinity community wanted to clarify. Axie Infinity also calls giving out Axies to another person and doing a rev share model a scholarship as well. That's an internal slang in the community that was being developed. But yeah, so we have to differentiate between a regular tuition scholarship and like an Axie Infinity scholarship.
Okay, on that topic, can you explain what is the mechanism? Like, how can I give you my Axie? How do I lend you my Axies or
Yeah,
my
that
account?
part, this when I found out how this works, it blew my mind. Okay, so your Axies live on your master Ronin wallet. So Sky Mavis, the company made their own wallet called the Ronin. So it's got MetaMask, but for the Axie ecosystem. So you have this centralized Ronin wallet. You can make sub wallets that you can then send the teams into. So let's say like I made account 0 and I have like 3 Axies and I want to give you Axies. So I'd make a sub wallet called like sub wallet 1 and I send the 3 Axies to sub wallet 1. and I go, hey, and each sub wallet has a game account. So it's like, regular email password, right? I give you the email password, but the only thing you can do on that, John, is that you can only play Axie Infinity. You cannot sell the Axies, even though they're on your account. You don't have access to the master wallet. So the game assets and the game account are separated, which is like weird because like usually when you log into like World of Warcraft, those are your assets on your account. But the wallet and the game accounts are two separate areas, which is like insane.
Okay, you already blew my mind. Okay, but now I want to go back to the AcadArena tuition scholarships. So what's the concept there, and how does that tie to Axie's Infinity?
Yeah, so we were already talking to a few schools, the universities in the Philippines, to accept SLP, the currency farm and Axie, to accept SLP as tuition. So that's happening. It's so we're in three. I'm teasing this, but we're talking to three schools right now, and so it's interesting because in the Philippines they're accepting SLP as currency across like stores. You can go to a store and buy like groceries with SLP, not pesos, SLP. So
Okay, so let me get this straight. So
you farm this internet,
you can
you
farm
farm this like game
smooth love
money.
potions, and
Yeah,
now you have convinced you're in the process of convincing a couple universities to accept smooth love potions
yeah, exactly.
to, to pay for tuition.
Yeah, because when we're talking to these schools too, the school directors also have their own Axie guild, which is hilarious. They have their own Axie, they have their own Axie teams. They have their own scholars, which plays for them, and they do the rev share model together. So people are side hustling everywhere, and then they all get it. So and then Axie just launched their own mobile Ronin mobile wallet as well. So the payments are so fast now. And there's no gas fees on top of this because it's layer two. It's in their own ecosystem. So you're not paying like the Ethereum gas fees for doing this.
Is layer two? Is this the same announcement they did with? Is it called Immutable?
Not with Immutable, but it's similar. But Axie has their
Immutable,
own
yeah.
ecosystem. Yeah.
Immutable was Ember.
Ember Sword. Yeah,
Ember
yeah, yeah.
Sword. Are you involved in Ember Sword as well?
That's the game I actually really want to play because it's made by the one of the best guilds in World of Warcraft during Wrath of the Lich King. It was called like his guild was called like I forgot his guild name, Insidious
Oh,
guild. Very it was like a top one, it was like a top three WoW guild back in the day. So it's actually made by a hardcore MMO player.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so you're co-founder, co-CEO of AcadArena. You guys provide tuition scholarships for students in Southeast Asia. As I don't know if this is part of AcadArena or your side thing. On the side, are you also like leading a guild?
Yeah, so AcadArena is also that guild now. So the guild business model that's kind of like emerged out of Web3 was like um players, so guilds that are like guilds like me raising venture capital can now like buy into these ecosystem, especially there's like now over like 200 crypto games being made already, like the next so many games are being launched. So guilds become an amazing games marketing engine for these new crypto games. And then two is like some of these companies, these games are building with guild infrastructure in mind, so that revenue sharing model, they're designing their games to allow guilds to own like guild assets, which is crazy. You know how like you have like a guild in like World of Warcraft, you get those buffs, those perma buffs are like 10% extra exp for being a
Yeah.
guild. So they're kind of creating similar systems before, and then we're helping games like acquire users, get users into their ecosystem, play their games, using that as a way to get more students to make part-time, like make a part-time income through this.
Okay, on this topic, I want to ask about going back to. We're jumping around a lot, but going back to Axies, um, what is land and items, and what are items in Axies?
Yeah, so land has been teased for like a year now. Land gameplay is coming out probably next year. It's kind of been speculating, but like there's like a giant that's like it's lands is also an NFT in itself where like if you own that piece of land, you're the only one that can own a piece of land. And apparently, like they want to create customizable games on land, so like other people can make games on top of the Axie land. I think like maybe like Roblox esque. I'm not sure how this works, but like if you buy land, you can earn AXS tokens, SLP, and other benefits when people kill stuff on your land and stuff. So you get yield off of that gameplay. I'm not sure. We don't own that much land right now, but we want to. But it's like $15,000 for the lowest piece of land, and it's like, do I really want to make this investment right now? Not yet, but like it's something they've been teasing for like for the last year.
Okay, what about items?
The items give you Axie's power ups when they battle on those lands. So not only do you have to like buy the land, you have to buy the upgrades for your land so that your land becomes a favorable like farming spot. It sounds like, I don't know. They haven't released anything about it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Once this all plays out, it'll be something along the lines of some people can own land, and you can improve your land with items, and other players can compete on your land, and that generates potentially maybe, or is it guaranteed? But it generates maybe SLPs, of which the landowner gets some, and then the
Yeah.
winner of the game gets some.
Yeah, exactly. So some sort of like split between like landowners and people that farm on the land. So it's like I look at it as like I think it's like what's going on is like what's going on overall. Like if you take a 30,000 step back, right? Over the course of like last like 15 years, our digital identity has become increasingly more important, especially like with games like League of Legends, Fortnite that pioneered like skins. And what we wear in these games matter, and what we own in these games matter. And I think like I made the biggest, like, it was like one of my, like when we all started playing League of Legends, we all were like, no way I'm buying the skin. Then like here I am spending like $4,000 in my 10 years of playing League. You know, I have like a lot of skins in League now because it matters to me. Or like now with Valorant and all these other collabs, right? Um, because of this, and another game I played was back in 2012. I played this sandbox MMO where I own like this house in Arcade. I was the only one that can own this house, and I had 4 guilds bidding for that house when I was trying to quit, and I actually bankrupted them they like bid like so high, and that I was able to fund all my friends that were still playing. And it's because this idea of like we find a lot of value in what we spend our, and when we find value in whatever we spend our time on, right? Whether it's sports, like gaming or whatever. Gaming now has been able to scale infinitely because the the worlds that we get to be in is now like almost infinite in terms of like the different types of worlds that get to be built. That's why there's over 200 crypto games being built now. Um, I think what's cool about this is like the players, it actually gets to own pieces of the ecosystem versus where, you know, in other game, in like before this, it was kind of like I can't really do much with my League of Legends account other than play and like say I have fun. Like after like 10 years, now like these these ecosystems are coming out that are like, wow, like people are buying their family's groceries through this. People are paying tuition while also having fun. And I think what's going on now is like, I think people are trying to compare like play to earn games to like AAA games right now. But I look at it as, if you look at it from the other lens, it's like, I think play to earn really just needs to be better than the lowest denominator jobs. I think like the gig economy and like the early entry jobs that are like very hard to do uh will be replaced by play to earn stuff. Two is like if you're in a economy where it's not thriving, like Los Angeles, where it's like, you know, not everyone has access to like West Coast tech industry. Um, you know, having a phone and being able to tap a global economy through a video game, I think video games is like this universal language that makes cryptocurrency adoptable. It's like a perfect match made in heaven. Because I think like you can talk all about DeFi, staking, which token to flip or which NFT to buy, but I think with gaming it has so much more staying power.
how, like, in the grand scheme of things, since this whole concept of guilds started, I don't know, like maybe it was more popularized this year, how many, like in the scale of things, like what rank is your guild, or how do you know which guilds are bigger than others?
Yeah, it's like that's not that information's not out yet in terms of like it's very hard to track because like it's kind of like when when league started up and everyone
Yeah,
had to like where was their lat like they have their like Axie has their own leaderboard, but it's not like this open API where you can like look up my rank as a player, right? Um, so that's not out yet. That's why these new games that are coming out are developing a lot more developer API so that third party companies can come make like the next u.gg or like all these other
I
third party
see.
resources and stuff. But right now it's kind of like all over the place. And there's really only like 5 to 8 guilds that are like making all these big investments into these games right now. It's like Yield Guild Games, Yield Guild Games Southeast Asia, which is their sub DAO, Yushi, Merit Circle, all these new upcomers that are like not the big esports brands actually, but all these companies that came from these developing nations because they were like they did it out of necessity.
In the grand scheme of things, are you guys like a top 50 guild, or like maybe regionally? Like where are you
Yeah, I
at?
think we'll be top 25 by Q1, and I want to be top 10. That's like the ambition.
What helps you get there? Like what do you have to do as a guild? You just recruit people?
It's like that's like the really important question, right? It's like, so right now like a lot of guilds are formed and people come apply to the guild because of the Axie scholarship, right? Where they only come and stay for the play to earn side. What makes us really cool is that the AcadArena experience is a holistic student experience where you get to find your gaming club on campus. You are supported in your journey as a student who enjoys gaming. So you're not just like someone just farming SLP all day. There's like a community around you that is like you can play in our Valorant championships, you can join your gaming club, you can do all these activities. We also give not like regular scholarships. So we do a lot and we also do our own events that are like that we're able to mobilize our community very fast. So it's like what we want to work on is like how do we make play to earn part of our ecosystem and get students from 0 to 1, because I think like what's important is like differentiating that experience, right? Because end of the day, it's like players go from like which guild gives them more revenue share, right? If I'm giving like 60/40, another guild set gives 70/30, they're gonna take the 70/30. So it's like what is the draw of like me like so how do we differentiate from guild to guild? And I think our cornerstone with like 300 schools, 100,000 students in our network is like a good differentiating point. Uh, so I think with yeah, so I think those are what we like what we know is important, but we haven't taken the time to like really flesh out that 0 to 1 experience yet. And I think that's like what's the next 6 months gonna be like for us.
Let's say I want to get involved, and I don't need a scholarship. I'll go buy my own 3 Axies. Is there any benefit for me to join, let's say, a different guild, just so like I'm not playing by myself? Like, is there
Yeah,
a guild element where like it's not about the money, but just more about like interaction?
exactly. So we do like anime nights. So you can like play and like watch anime. You can like, you know, do activities on Discord with other people that you want to talk to. There's other stuff where like people want to talk about other games together. So like having good dialogues and discourse around other games so that you're not just like you can't participate in the guild unless you have a scholarship. Like we want other types of people to join and be part of that community. So there are guilds like that where you can join those types of discourse and have those conversations. So yeah, I think that does work, and it's yeah, there's communities like that exist.
Okay, but mechanically, how does it work? Like, at least when I'm in a WoW guild, you know how it works. Like, there's actually like a guild interface. I'm in the WoW guild. Let's say once again I don't need scholarships. Let's say I want to join your guild. Like, is it like am I? Is there a way to officially be part of it, or I'm just like in your Discord and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a good question because that's the other thing that we're trying to ideate. It was like, do we use NFTs and our own tokens to build something called in-guild achievements so that we can map your player data, like your player experience through being in our guild and earn rewards by being like, let's say you hit gold in League of Legends. Can we reward you in something that's not just about play to earn, but like maybe a way to memorialize you being in our guild and celebrating this moment of a season end thing.
That's a
Just
good
like,
idea.
yeah. So like, what are those experiences look like that makes you feel like you're part of something much bigger than yourself versus like, I'm just here like being in a Discord server and I'm lost in the noise of like over 10,000 people.
So I get the play to earn part, but for these games, could be Axis, could be any other games. Is there even, we didn't talk about this yet. Is there like just really good players? Does that exist? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the
There
WoW
are,
guilds, right? When you say
yeah.
top three WoW guilds, like it was because they would get the raids first. They would beat the raids. So are there any top guilds that are not purely, I don't know what the term is, like yield focus, and it's more about like just winning?
Yeah, yeah. There's like one guild that I was talking to. This name is like Meditate, and like they try to get as many players into the top 2,000. So every month, they run like Hearthstone type seasons where it's like every month, where Axie gives out like $400,000 in cash prizes in AXS tokens for top 2,000 players. So they built their identity around placing in the top 500, top 1,000, top 2,000. So those are some guilds that are being formed on like trying to master Axie Infinity and play at the highest of levels. There's some guilds that are just like more casual. They want to just have fun, hang out, do art contests, watch anime, build a comfy vibe. There's different types of themes.
Right.
It's
Wow.
crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned five other things, which I okay. Maybe two more questions. So as you were talking about this, you also mentioned DAO. What's a DAO?
Yeah, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. So that's like the full name of it. And a DAO is like a way for people to really have the community own a piece of the ecosystem that they're part of, usually through either through voting for new policies, new programs, and it usually requires you to own either a certain amount of tokens or an NFT um, to partake in these things. Um, I think like for us, if we are like there's some really cool applications of DAOs so far, especially in crypto games. It's like, we can put things up to a vote of like, okay, like how much of our treasury is going to go into supporting three games do you want to expand to? Is it Ember Sword? Is it, big time? Is it, whatever, right? So community gets to vote on it based on how much token allocation they have. So it's like, it's interesting. And it's like a new way for big organizations to like make decisions together. There's like, we're looking into if we want to do our DAO or not. We're kind of like yes and no on both sides because like we're not sure if like how much is a DAO like it like controls our like operation side because we have a lot of IP. We're building like tools, tech. Like we don't want to get slowed down by DAOs in terms of like more red tapes, more voting and that stuff because we want to build. Um, but that's like those were some of the early mistakes of DAOs. Like it was too decentralized, where like every little decision had to be voted on, and like DAOs would just die because of that. Now, like this year of DAO was like more like they kind of nominate the founders of the DAO or like the leaders of the DAO, and they get to like have the most votes up until like usually a 4 to 5 year cliff until the DAO is fully like decentralized. But the first 4 or 5 years of the DAO, it's usually like still company led. So it's like kind of a weird mix that I'm still like very new to. I've only jumped into this space in the guild side for like 45 days now and just been like absorbing a lot of like, and crypto is like a full-time like thing in itself. So trying to gather as much information as possible. What I've noticed was like you want to give a lot of like the voting for like, how like RuneScape, actually RuneScape is a good example of this. RuneScape, you can vote on membership benefits every like 3 months or every season. So you get to vote on like the top 10 new features or something. And then like Jagex would build it. So it's kind of like those things, but it wouldn't mess with the overall game of like RuneScape. It was more like what are the next season benefits will be or whatever. So it's like, what is that balance? So we're not sure yet. The answer is like I don't know enough about it.
Okay, so full circle back to where we started was you moved to LA to get into collegiate esports or just gaming slash esports. I heard you were planning, are you moving anytime soon? And where are you moving and why?
Yeah, I want to move to Southeast Asia because we have like 20 full-time staff there now, and like I gotta be there with them and not work and be disconnected. So and also like it sounds like another one of those full send stories of like, it sounds like another epic adventure. Why not do it before I
And
turn like
and
30?
I was looking at some of the stats, and they were saying as far as Axies goes, and there's multiple games, of course. Like the majority of players, I'm not saying 51%, I'm just saying the majority of one country, the players are from Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's like
Right?
43% of all Axie players are from Southeast Asia. Yeah.
That's crazy. And I heard like 20% alone was from like the Philippines. So that's
Yeah.
wild.
And then like 23% of all Axie players don't have a bank account.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
actually insane,
Which
right?
which is which is why I feel like, wow, you know how Coinbase and all these exchanges are sponsoring like TSM and Team Liquid. I mean, next stop is just sponsoring these guilds, I think.
Yeah, because like it's interesting because we get to what's really fascinating about this guild model is that we get to own our own ecosystem. And because esports was so heavily reliant on sponsorship revenue, right? In order for the company to like do well, you either go creator mode where you have to like sign creators and do like and secure BD for them and do like a revenue share for them, or just secure sponsorship deals. I could be totally wrong, but I'm like I've never worked on an esports team, so this could be like pure ignorance, or it's like um yeah, and it just seems like this you don't get to if I can just monetize with the game's health, that makes it a lot better. And you've seen this with like Dota, where like they crowdfunded every year the TI, where like the community gets to build this amazing reward system. Axie's the same way in like these other games. It's like, well, I get to be in control of my own company like even more now versus like begging for money all the time.
You're spot on. So what I've noticed a lot at all these game studios is that uh, some companies try to treat esports like it's independent P&L, but most companies treat it as like an expense. But in reality, it's something in between. So let's say LCS. I think LCS, the model they're trying to take is that it is an individual P&L, but in reality, I don't know the exact numbers, but I do believe they get some portion of the revenues of even non-esports skins. For esports skins, yeah, they should get most or all the revenue. But even for non-esports things that are somehow attributed or related to an esports event or timeline, I think they count the revenues for that too. So, okay, I lied. I actually do have one more question. So we started this whole talk about collegiate esports, and I was very passionate and interested in this space too a couple years ago. I've kind of since fell out of it, and my perception as more of like a passive bystander is that it looks like collegiate esports is like feels kind of dead. I don't know. Like, am I wrong? Am I wrong
Yeah,
about
it's
this?
good. Yeah. It's 100% like yeah, that's actually why it kind of like left too. I felt like I was fighting this like isolated journey and then like I think people were like I think what happened was like a couple of things. It was like one, there's like the standard was pitched too low. The commitment that the school needed to put in was like too low. Two was like there's a lot of like infighting, a lot of like infighting between different orgs, a lot of program directors. Like there's a lot of like it's very clicky, very a lot of red tape now. It doesn't feel student led anymore, which is like my detriment because I helped move this thing to that way, thinking it was a different outcome. It was interesting, and then like and at the same time, like I think what's happening is like what my thesis after like few years of doing this at Twitch was like, why should I was like, why don't we just focus on students directly and not deal with the red tapes of schools, which is what we're doing now in AcadArena. Um, because the world's decentralized. A lot of what happened in college esports was like college esports people, the decision makers that came in later, where a lot of them were sports background. And I think I hate seeing this in esports where like a lot of people in sports come in and they try to make it like this centralized television style broadcasting and the strategy, but they totally forgot to incorporate the creator economy when it comes to like building their brand. Why would I watch? Okay, the thing is like people thought that like people would watch college esports like they would with college basketball or college football. But I always said no to that thinking because you have so many choices in terms of like what's to watch right now, let alone whatever's on Twitch, right? But like on YouTube, on Netflix, you're battling for so much attention. But if you just look at the esports content in general, esports is on 7 days a week now. The top tournaments are on every single week, right? Like, why would I watch this thing when I can watch pro play? And I also think about when we think about identity, and it goes back to my sentiment on like our digital identities matter way more than before than our physical. And I think like our tie-ins with our schools and our location matters way less now. It's more interest based. It's more like, what are you, a K-pop stan? Are you you watch anime, or you like play League of Legends, or you watch Valorant, or you watch these streamers? So it's like kind of like people are hanging out in these micro pods of Discord before, and like before the internet and all, before like mainstream internet, like social media internet, like Web 2 blew off, right? You still had to, when you left for college, you had to like make friends at your college. You couldn't bring your friends with you. But now like kids go to college and they still they're just playing on League of Legends with their friends on Discord or Fortnite or whatever. So they don't really get to like, so they have more choices in what's out there. So for a school to try to capture this college esports thing, they're using traditional marketing channels that are like not that effective and it's not compelling. Those are like my 2 cents of what's like why I think there's this like this dead energy, because I think the people that came in um had the wrong focus.
Well, great. Well, we covered a lot. I certainly got a lot to think about today. But Kevin, thank
But do
you
you
for
agree with
stopping
that?
by.
Or do you agree with that as like to an extent? Or like it was like that was like a hypothesis I had. I was like, you know, if you look at like centralized, like there was a esports company that was trying to do a 24/7 media, 24/7 like MTV of esports. It was like those aggregate channels don't work.
Ven.tv or something.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like it was Ven, and yeah, it was Ven. It was like those good ideas, right? Like these are like, why are these like traditional methods like not fully working? And it's like, oh, I think it's because there's the creator economy is so strong. Like Valkyrie is on all the time, Courage, to like all these top streamers that are like way more interesting than like
So,
these
oh,
other
so your
methods.
point, so is your question, why are the kind of why is trying to bring in traditional media and sports model not working?
And that's why I don't, and that's part of the reason why I think the it didn't work in college esports
Because
particularly.
they were trying to make it the collegiate version of that. Actually, yes, I agree with you completely. I think, okay, I mean, I've got some intel on this, which is when, okay, what does this all boil down to, right? So it boils down to the people hired. Okay, well, who hires these people? Well, they're usually super senior, so like top 10 of a company, C-suite or whatnot.
Yeah,
Okay, then I ask myself, why are they thinking this way? And I think based on my knowledge of them, not little, but not a lot, like medium level knowledge, is that once your company is like steady state, kind of like a Riot or Blizzard is probably like late stage, super mature company, you're not optimizing for, uh, let's just say, like crazy adventure, new things, innovation, kind of like what you're doing, like a startup. And this is why I think startups exist, because by the nature, even though like Riot is doing super great with Arcane, all these things that come out, in the grand scheme of things, it does seem like slower and like older, right? And
yeah,
Blizzard is like falling apart essentially. Like it might be dead in a couple of years. Who knows? Given this rate, and I think it's because the managers of those companies are managing to reduce risk, but at the cost of like minimal innovation.
yeah.
Anyways, it's not risky to hire a VP from NFL, right? It's not risky to hire a VP from ESPN. If anything, I think the issue is a lot of the senior people at game companies, when you think about it, like in the grand scheme of things, this is gonna sound weird. I feel like we are comfortable in our own skins and where esports and gaming is at, right? Like to some degree, you had to fight against that at University of Washington. I understand that, but then you won that battle. I think the previous generations before us, they grew up in the world where gaming was still like for nerds. So
Yeah.
for them, it's more of an allure to say that I am on ESPN. Because first of all, I bet you and we didn't watch ESPN, but the CEOs of these companies, if they're like 10, 15 years older than us, they do. So they're trying to kind of like validate their successful jobs with this, I don't know, with what they were doing in traditional media and sports.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think that's what, for lack of, I think like, just to be a little more controversial, I think that's what killed the budding light of collegiate esports. On the other hand, I did like some of those tournaments because I feel like, wow, like we're really taking it to the next level, and that was cool. I think it just takes time for this ecosystem to build. You can't just have like one or two world championships and then give up on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like, yeah, because I think those are all like very validating points, because I was like kind of seeing it from, they were like taking their like like what they think is like that would validate the space more based on how they grew up. And it's kind of like those biases that like kicks in. Yeah, and I think that's like, and that's why it was like seeing like now like LCS, you can like, there's a lot of co-streaming now, right, with Twitch rivals, and like, they've like using like leveraging like creators to kind of like help push these things, right? I think that they'd be able to let go and like quote unquote decentralize the broadcast has always helped now. So it's like these little micro changes. I mean, now Riot's even doing that, right, with co-streaming, and now like and taking a page out of like the Twitch rivals playbook, right? So it's like all these things are like, I think this is the reason why college esports kind of ran out of steam. But yeah, it was like we didn't talk about that very much all day, but it's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Thanks again, Kevin. I learned a lot from you today, so thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sean.